So we're using where you take the square root of something to find the roots of the parabola. So it's double layers of fun. So here is, we just have 6 examples, and your work tomorrow will be closely related to this. 3x squared minus 27 equals 0. Please don't try to work ahead on these because it's not super obvious what our next step would be, right? Because we have that weird equals 0. So we need to get the term that has our variable alone. So I'm going to add 27 to both sides. So now I have 3x squared equals 27. All right, and then I have to get x squared by itself. So I'm going to divide by 3. So now I have x squared equals 9. And then this is where the square root to find the roots comes into play. I'm going to take the square root of x squared and take the square root of 9. So since x times x gives me x squared, I get x equals, and then I have positive or negative 3. And the reason it's plus or minus 3 is because 3 times 3 gives me 9. Negative 3 times negative 3 also gives me 9. So then my roots, my zeros, roots are x equals 3, x equals negative 3. And those are my answers. Yes, sir?
So, like, what if it started off with, like, we had to subtract 27 and, like, and it went down from there?
We're going to do several examples, so, yeah. Hopefully I'll be able to answer all those questions. All right, example 2. X squared minus 10 equals negative 10. Okay, so I'm going to add 10 to both sides to get x squared by itself. And I'm going to have x squared equals 0. Well, what's my x going to be?
0.
0, because the square root of x squared equals square root of 0. So x equals 0. So my answer is x equals 0. And that just tells me the origin is the vertex, ooh, that was loud, of the parabola. So there's only one x-intercept because that's where the vertex cross would be right sitting on the x-axis, and it happens to be the origin. Because if x is 0, I already know that means my y is 0, so that's where it's crossing. All right. How are we feeling so far? Not terrible, right? All right, number 3. We have negative 5x squared plus 11 equals 16. All right, so I'm going to subtract 11 from both sides. I'm going to have negative 5x squared equals 5. And then I'm going to divide by negative 5. And I'm going to get x squared equals negative 1. All right, so what do you notice about this situation right here? Yes?
Is that if you square root -1, you're going to get +1 and a -1?
Not really. Okay, so can I multiply anything by itself and get a negative?
No.
That's not possible, right? Because a negative times a negative is also a positive. So this is no solution. Right, that means we're not going to be able to make a parabola with that one. And the reason is you can't square a number and get a negative value. Right? So if you get to this step and it's like x squared equals -30, your answer is no solution. That's not a thing in math. You can't do that. All right, let's move on to 4, 5, and 6. Need more paper?
I might have more here.
There's some on the counter if you want some. Example 4, we have x minus 1 squared equals 25. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing I just was doing, except it's just going to seem like it looks a little weird. I'm going to take the square root of x minus 1 squared and the square root of 25. All right, so what's multiplied times itself to get x minus 1 squared?
X minus 1.
X minus 1. So now I have x minus 1 equals positive or negative 5. Because remember, 5 times 5, negative 5 times negative 5. Okay. So now I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And I'm going to get x equals 1 plus or minus 5. I need to turn that down. Okay, so my two roots are x equals 6, x equals -4. Who can tell me how I got those two values? Chase.
When you add 1 to +5, you get 6. When you add 1 to -5, you get -4.
Perfect. So you actually have to work and figure out what is 1 plus 5, what is 1 minus 5. And those will be your x-intercepts for that parabola that we would draw on a graph. Okay, number 5, scooting right along. 2x plus 1 squared equals 36. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the square root of 2x plus 1 squared, and I'm going to do the square root of 36. You with me, TJ? Okay, so what's my next line going to look like? Plus or minus 6, right? Good. 2x plus 1 equals plus or minus 6. So I'm going to subtract the 1. So now I have 2x equals 1 plus or minus 6.
So would it be
-1 plus or minus -6. Plus or minus 6, thank you. What was that question?
so would it be a -6 and a +6?
Right. So then now I'm going to write two equations. 2x equals 5 and 2x equals negative 7. Because I have to do negative 1 plus 6 and negative 1 minus 6. Did I lose anyone? Are we all still on? Everybody on the bus still?
Yep.
Okay, I don't want to leave anybody behind. Layla, you okay back there? Stephanie? Okay. Isabel? Good. Kylie? Okay. All right, last one. You guys want to try this one by yourself? That's fair. 4x plus 5 squared, or the quantity 4x plus 5 squared equals 9. So Elise, what am I going to do first? Well, what did we do first up here? We're going to do the square root, exactly. So I'm going to do the square root of 4x plus 5 squared equals the square root of 9. Okay. What's going to be on my next line? TJ?
4x plus 5 equals 3.
Plus or minus 3. Yep. Good. Ronnie? Yep. So now I have 4x equals negative 5 plus or minus 3. What are going to be my two equations? 4x equals TJ?
4x equals negative 2, and then 4x equals negative 8.
Perfect. Divide by 4 on both sides. And I get x equals negative 1/2 and x equals negative 2. Ta-da! Not terrible, right? So your assignment tomorrow will be more problems just like these. So please make sure you have your jam with you. Follow along. Help yourself out tomorrow on those.